Our next presenter is Joe Cassar, who's the General Manager of Business and Service Development at Neami National. And over the last 30 years, Joe has worked in program development and service delivery roles right across community, local government, mental health and homelessness service sectors. And a common thread in his work has been seeking to support people to access and participate more fully in community life. And Joe, it's great to have you with us and to hear Neami National's perspective in relation to housing and support models.
Thanks, Jenny, and yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come along and speak today. And also, yeah, thanks to Noel. It's been a pleasure working with Noel over the years, and you know, contributing to Parity and to the work you're doing in the sector. Look, the first thing I think I'd say is to preface that the housing and support models that Neami has, predominantly been involved in has probably fitted neatly in Sarah's fourth category that she was speaking about, in terms of people that have got a serious mental illness, have had long-term homelessness, have been rough sleepers, and that's sort of been the area that we've tended to work in, and they're the models of housing and support that I can speak to today in terms of what we've seen that has had value and has worked. And I suppose our experience over the last 10 years has come from working with people with a serious mental illness in housing and support, and that sort of psychosocial recovery, orientation. And over that 10-year period, we've worked in supporting people, rough sleepers, in getting off the street. So the Way to Home program in Sydney. There's been the Wadumba Willem program in Melbourne, which has supported Aboriginal people experiencing mental health, issues and homelessness. We've had a 33-bed unit in Bell Street, Preston, with half people who have come off the waiting list, the department's waiting list, and the other half people with this, mental illness that have been homeless. And I suppose in more recent years, there's been all the homes, so the street to homes in Adelaide, the Towards Home in Melbourne, and I think there's Home to Stay now in New South Wales. So we've got about 10 or 11 programs that have developed over that period, and they've been in the main working in that fourth group that Sarah was, so well describing just earlier. I suppose underpinning, the work that we've done, or underpinning the models, is that sort of full citizenship that, people with a mental illness, people who have experienced homelessness, our work is to support full citizenship, in the community, and that they're residents and have got rights, it's a human rights, issue. What we know, I think, following what Sarah was saying again, that housing first principles work, and that they're foundational, and that really our models need to, we describe it as homefulness, that people need to feel safe, they need to feel connected, and they need to be able to do the things that matter to them. As Nigel was talking about just earlier, to the group. That I think, like Sarah, we've found that in this fourth group, that longitudinal support is important. So you can't work with people that have had long histories, and often there's trauma. So I think in our Wadumba Willem program, we've found that the bulk of the clients that we work with have had 5 or more significant experiences of trauma, in their background. I think for us, when we look at that, we look at programs like Journey to Social Inclusion, that the Sacred Heart Mission has so well articulated, and our experience has been similar, that it's about trust, again, which Sarah was pointing to, that you need to develop trust, you need to develop relationships, and then you can start to work on skill development, and you can start to work on connection to community. And like what Nigel pointed to earlier, you can start to then look at work or or training, or other things that are work, that are appropriate to you in your life. I think the three things that sort of underpin successful models that we've seen is one, I think, something that Minister Foley was talking about earlier. We need integrated approaches. And I think in all the programs that we've looked at, there's been an integration that has resulted in wraparound support for the client. So from way to home, where you're talking about the City of Sydney and the inner suburbs and the state government and housing and, private sector and other NGOs collaborating, through to, the Adelaide Project Zero, which is, the Don Dunstan Foundation, state government, again, civic NGO community, that is crucial in people being able to access support that they need, and where that might go. I think the second thing is system level collaborations, that they're crucial, and I think it's instructive. I know at a homelessness forum that you put on a couple of years ago, Jenny, we had the Finland example, and that country has almost eradicated homelessness, and thank goodness for that, given the the winters that they have there. But they had a big problem like the rest of Europe, and again that was partnerships with state, local, civic, local communities, turning off the tap at the source, housing first, and you don't then get the long, the traumatic events and the histories and the problems that we're dealing with. And we've seen that, I think in South Australia with the Adelaide Zero, Don Dunstan Foundation, and we've seen that with, establishing Australian Alliance to End Homelessness in Sydney, the In Street Sleeping collaborations. So there's something about broad, system-wide collaborations. I think the third thing that I'd say and that we've found is that data-led interventions and, research, such as the stuff that Sarah's doing with the Huri, crucial. And that, what we've found in the Adelaide Zero project, with the by name list, and having a by name list means that you know who those people are, where their locations are. You can start to link people to services. You can start to tailor the support. Again, like what Sarah was pointing to, that it's not a homogeneous group and there's different sort of interventions required, and that having that data is crucial. And I think it also helps to support design of the housing and support initiatives. So, and I think, like the COVID has seen that, so that there's been lots of people taken from the streets, and now it's like, well, what are the interventions that we can look at now to keep people from falling back into homelessness, and ensure that there's interventions going forward. And I suppose finally I'd like to shout out to Wellways and their Doorways program, which I think is a fantastic intervention, looking at real estate. So we need a range of interventions, and data will help us to understand that. And we know also from the data that of street sleepers, 80% of the clients in Adelaide are people with a serious mental illness, 80% are experiencing physical health, 80% are experiencing AOD, and 55% are experiencing a mix of all three. So I think I'll end it there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Joe, for sharing the Neami perspective. And I think you'll be hearing the terms full citizenship, homefulness, and longitudinal support coming out of my mouth a little bit more frequently. So thanks for your assistance with those.